Well, hello again from a glorious Whitley Park. If you can see in the distance there, my friend and his lawnmower, he's just pulling in for his lunch. So let's take this opportunity to record. And yeah, when he turns the engine off there, I think you will be able to hear the trees behind us there. Newcastle United's training session. It certainly sounds lively there, and so it should be, because there's an absolutely massive game on the horizon in 48 hours time along the road at St James's Park against Chelsea. But we're not going to start the video talking about that, no, because just moments ago was the big breaking news, major news, that Newcastle are set to change their club crest, the badge they've worn on the shirts since 1988. By the way, its first season was it was relegated. So what does it mean? We will come on to the game, of course. But yeah, there's going to be a week-long period of consultation starting from now, where Newcastle United season ticket holders and members will be given the chance to express their opinion as to the proposal to change the club crest. Now, I'll give my take in just a minute on what my own feeling is as to it being the right decision, the wrong decision. Is it a betrayal? Is it long overdue? But first of all, after that week of consultation, there will then be, the club will go away, they'll look at what was fed back to them by supporters, and on the back of that, some options will be presented, and there'll be an opportunity to vote on what you guys, what you want as the new club crest. It won't be coming in from next season. The idea is for it to be ready for 26-27. Now, what's my take on this? Well, we got an advanced warning that we would have an audience with some of the brand team after Eddie Howe's press conference inside there this morning. Now, as soon as that notification went round, my initial instinct was, yeah, they're going to change the club crest. And so it proved. Now, I'll be honest, when I first contemplated that thought, it all felt a little bit Mike Ashley, harking back to the stadium name change, of course, you know, which you guys rightly didn't show a lot of love for, and you did resist against it. Now, that was my initial thought. I thought, well, why change it? You know, I like this badge, the seahorses. It's steeped in the tradition of the city's coat of arms. It's been the badge on the shirt for pretty much as long as I can remember, and I dare say many of you as well. And I just thought it felt, initially, I thought it felt a little needless. But then you have time with the brand team, and it's explained to you. It's a very intricate badge. There are real daily issues in terms of producing it, in terms of putting it on strips. As the dad of 3 boys who have got drawers full of black and white and all other manner of colour Newcastle jerseys, I can vouch for that. At times, no two badges actually look the same, and if it goes on too hot or wash, well, there's every chance it's going to come off, because no longer are they actually woven into the shirt. They're stuck on like a sticking plaster almost, and that is because it's a difficult badge to design. It is very busy, and on closer inspection, I've come to look at it. It's a little like Game of Thrones, isn't it? There's seahorses, there's lions, there's castles, there's flags. There's a little bit of everything going on. I didn't actually realise it was a lion until I've looked closer there this morning. You know, so small is it, sat on top of the castle, not really serving its purpose as a roaring lion after all. So I can understand the practical need to change the badge. It is a little bit chaotic, and was explained to us inside. You know, if you look at brands now around the world, they are a little bit more minimalistic, you know, a little bit more stylistic, and I can see that. So having had that initial feeling of suspicion and skepticism, come the end of the half hour we had with the brand team, I had changed my mind, and then spoke to the guys down the line in London there, the Daily Mail, and I think their initial reaction was one of shock, given that everything Newcastle stands for, you know, a club so steeped in its tradition and with a great connection and sentiment for its past. I think they were surprised, and they said to me, you know, go and write a 500-word opinion piece on this, link in the description below the line. And when I come to sit down to do that, and taking in the actual practicalities of it, which had been explained to us by the brand manager, I did change my mind, and it made me realise that Newcastle is a unique, iconic club, but not because of its badge. You know, it's not the actual thing that sits on your heart. It's the soul that rests beneath. Yes, there are some tangible elements to the iconic nature of Newcastle United across the world. You know, the black and white stripes, the stadium, the cathedral on the hill. Now, goodness, we could be having a conversation about changing that in the not too distant future. But the badge No, I don't necessarily think so. And don't forget that it was changed 3 times in 12 years between 1976 and 1988. So change has happened in the past. We've seen it at other clubs as well. So in summary, I'm okay with it. Now that opinion might change when we do see the options in the eventual decision. Now, if it was a crest I didn't like and I actually thought was a downgrade, then I'd be fairly vociferous, and I think I would probably change my opinion. But until we arrive at that day, for now, the concept and the proposal of changing the club badge, am I okay with it? Yes. Well, yes, I am. Now, Chelsea on Sunday, back to, for me, what are more pressing matters. That is one thing I would take slight issue with, just the timing of the release. 48 hours out from this game that's being billed as the cup final, the biggest of the season so far. Everything else, attach what you want to it. I don't think anything can underplay how big this one is. So yeah, to change the narrative from it, I was sat there asking questions about team selection, the supporters having to show up and make this the occasion it has to be for Newcastle to get the result they need against Chelsea. Then all of a sudden everything's overtaken because we've got the impending announcement about the club crest. So yeah, timing a little strange, but that shouldn't distract. I think by the time the game comes round, we won't be talking about club crests at 12 o'clock on Sunday. And behind the trees there, it's gone awfully quiet. I hope someone hasn't gone down with an injury, because it really was. The boys really were making a racket there 5 minutes ago when I started the video on injuries. Fitness news. Let's start at the very top. Now, there are a couple of concerns coming out of last weekend. Fabian Schär and Kieran Trippier. I revealed in my Newcastle Confidential column yesterday that Fabian Schär, he's okay. He's trained this week. He'll be in the squad. Kieran Trippier as well. It sounds like he's going to be okay. Now, Joelinton. A lot of folk asking, is there any way they can patch Joelinton up and bring him back, for these games against Chelsea and Arsenal, given how important he has shown himself to be in those type of games, when it is about that force of physicality, someone imposing themselves on the opposition. Joelinton would be perfect. Well, no, he's not going to play on Sunday. He returned to the training ground yesterday. Now, interestingly, he's been in Barcelona for an injection. Now, we thought previously Joelinton wouldn't play again this season. Even Eddie Howe himself said last week, very unlikely that Joelinton plays again. But if you're going to Barcelona for an injection, are they not just testing out the knee and pumping you full of whatever it is you need to be pumped of to play through the pain, to test it out? Maybe, just maybe. Eddie Howe wasn't absolutely definitive there inside this morning on Joelinton being out for the season. And I just think the nature of what we saw down at Brighton last weekend, when Joe Willock was better but not great, and the midfield for me didn't function at all last week. Sandro Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes had their worst games in weeks. So given that, has there just been a little bit of a renewed effort to say, okay, let's just see what can Joelinton do, Arsenal and Everton beyond? We'll have to wait and see. At the moment, Eddie is still sort of staying inside. It's unlikely, but not definitely out. And what a boost that would be. So that's for down the line, because Joelinton won't be involved on Sunday against Chelsea. And that's a miss, because Chelsea have come back to form, especially in the midfield as well, with Enzo and Romeo Lavia, a player Newcastle did like. He's just starting to dictate things in there. So it's not the game we perhaps thought it was going to be a few weeks ago. When I looked at this fixture 4 or 5 weeks out, and Chelsea were in the run they were in, Cole Palmer wasn't scoring goals, you said, yeah, that is the game that will probably all but confirm the top 5, given Newcastle will just beat Chelsea at St James's Park. I'm not so sure now going into it, but what I am certain of is the need, and this was something Eddie Howe said inside to us this morning, that the need for that occasion to be like Arsenal at home in the semi-final, to be like Manchester United a couple of Sundays ago. Now, the danger with that is it's the 12 o'clock kickoff, the sleepy zone, where you often go into these games and the snoozers aren't for the first half. It can't be that on Sunday. Those on the pitch have to respond to those in the stands, and those in the stands have to respond to those on the pitch. And that is why I think, selection-wise, and this was the question I asked of Eddie Howe, if there's a need to get the crowd into the game, what sort of player has done that better than any other this season? Well, it's Anthony Gordon. Think back to those big nights, thundering through those challenges inside 30 seconds, putting man and ball out of touch, and the crowd responding to it. That's what it's got to be on Sunday. And I think, and again, this was the question I put to Eddie, the last few weeks, the team has almost picked itself. There's been no real debate around selection, be it with Eddie Howe or Jason Tindall before that. On Sunday, down at Brighton, I come away from that game thinking, it might just be time for change now. The influence Anthony Gordon had in the second half, when he wasn't wonderful technically, not everything came off for him, but his intent and his mindset and that aggression he has in terms of his purposefulness of his running, I think it makes a big difference. And that is what the team needs and what the crowd needs on Sunday. I would find a way to get Anthony Gordon back into the team. When I put it to Eddie, he understood the tone of the questioning. He said Anthony knows in himself now that his body is back where it needs to be, and that has given the manager a decision. I don't know how you do it. Is it Barnes or Murphy who comes out, or do you find some other way? But for me, Anthony Gordon has to start on Sunday. Now, I've been lucky enough to spend this week in Milan. I'll put a little link in the description below to my post-match scrambled thoughts from outside the San Siro, following, Inter Milan versus Barcelona, which was just wonderful, incredible. You know, I didn't actually see a great deal of it because I had my head down typing, given the goals were flying in, the amount of rewrites I had to produce. But just to be there was incredible. You know, the night before the game, that feel, that buzz around the stadium, sitting in the press conference there with Hansi Flick, with Dani Olmo, Simone Inzaghi, and going out and watching Lamine Yamal walk onto the pitch and train. And it just brought home really that needs to be in the Champions League. If you're the club that Newcastle want to be, that is the stage they've got to be at. Yes, because of the financial element to it and what it allows Newcastle to then go and do in the summer. But just by the time next season comes around, for that sense of occasion, to be at the centre of the footballing universe, playing in these big matches, Newcastle deserve to be there. Newcastle should be there, but there's a little bit of work to be done yet, and that is why Sunday is huge, and Newcastle need to win, really, given they do go to Arsenal the week after. And I've looked, as I dare say you guys have too, at all the main fixtures of Newcastle's rivals for the top 5, and I would say those teams probably go into pretty much every match as favourites. I think Newcastle have to work on the proviso that all their rivals are probably going to win all of their games. Goodness, when Newcastle finish against Chelsea on Sunday and Nottingham Forest at home to Leicester 10 minutes after full time. So yeah, they've got to go and fulfil their end of the bargain, and that has got to be with a victory against Chelsea on Sunday. A draw isn't the worst result, but a draw then probably does rely on having to get something at Arsenal and bank on other results going your way. So go and win on Sunday. And in terms of prediction, I think they will. I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be a good game. At the moment, they're all good games. I think it could be a high scoring. I'm going to go for Newcastle 3, Chelsea 2. Now, I'd be happy enough if that was the outcome, because we'd have the entertainment and the result Newcastle need at the end of it. But I do believe this will be two teams going at each other, and what an afternoon we have in store. We really do. Tell me what you think below the line is going to happen. Tell me what you think again, about the top of the video, the club crest. Just so much to go at. I say it at the end of every video, just the most newsy, brilliant, bonkers club to cover in the land. But next year, to keep them at the very top of the news agenda, and I'm speaking selfishly here, we need them in the Champions League, and I remain convinced that they will be there. But my take, play Anthony Gordon on Sunday. What do you think? Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back at St James's then, reflecting afterwards, on what I believe will be a home victory, but I'm not as convinced as I was previously. It's going to be tight. It's going to be fascinating. See you then. Bye-bye.